God's love for you is constant. Even when your heart feels broken or your spirit is weary, it is not conditional upon your success, your goodness, or your ability to hold yourself together. It is a love that stretches beyond your understanding, reaching into the deepest corners of your life where shame, fear, and doubt have taken root. Even when you stumble, even when you turn away, God's mercy quietly follows, never giving up, never letting go. Each breath you take is evidence of His care. Each heartbeat a reminder that He is near. He knows your struggles intimately and delights in every effort you make to turn toward Him. This love calls you to pause, to rest in His embrace, and to know that you are more than your mistakes, that your worth is found in His eyes, not in the judgment of the world. Mercy is not merely forgiveness. It is the gentle, patient lifting of the soul, guiding it back to life when it feels lost. It is a healing force that does not demand perfection, only an open heart willing to receive. God's mercy moves quietly through your fears, through your failures, and through the shadows you carry. It restores hope where despair has taken root and lights a path where confusion clouds your vision. Even in moments when you feel unworthy, God whispers tenderly, "You are mine." His mercy does not leave you waiting in uncertainty or anguish. It is active, alive, and present in every prayer, every sigh, every tear. There is a rhythm to it, a pulse that beats in harmony with your longing, urging your spirit to rise, to trust, and to believe that no sin, no failure, no darkness is beyond the reach of His loving mercy. Consider the times you have felt alone, overwhelmed by guilt or sorrow, thinking that your heart has grown too heavy for God's embrace. Yet it is in these very moments when your weakness is most visible that His love shines brightest. God's love does not measure your worth by your achievements or punish you for your human fragility. It is a steadfast presence that waits patiently, willing to restore, to lift, to redeem. You may not hear it loudly, but it speaks in the stillness, in the gentle nudges of your conscience, in the quiet peace that sometimes comes when you kneel in prayer. It sees beyond the chaos of your mind, the mistakes of your past, the regrets you carry, and it calls you to return, to trust, to surrender, and to know that you are infinitely loved. God's mercy also teaches you how to love others with patience, compassion, and humility. When you experience a love so unwavering, it changes how you see the world, how you treat your neighbor, and how you forgive yourself. It is impossible to be touched by God's mercy and remain hardened, for His love softens the heart, opens the eyes, and strengthens the hands for service. Even when you are tempted to judge or resent, the awareness of His mercy reminds you that all human beings are walking through their own struggles, their own shadows, seeking the same grace you have received. This love is not passive. It moves you, transforms you, and calls you to reflect God's goodness in every action, every word, and every thought. It teaches you that to receive mercy is to become a vessel of mercy in the world. Finally, God's unfailing love is a refuge when the storms of life rage around you. When fear, doubt, and despair press upon your soul, His love is an anchor that cannot be shaken. It is a light that shines steadily in the darkness, reminding you that no matter how far you feel from Him, He is near. This love offers rest to the weary, hope to the discouraged, and courage to the timid. It is patient in your hesitation, gentle in your failures, and persistent in calling you to return to Him. Every act of His love is intentional, designed to draw you closer, to heal wounds, and to strengthen your spirit. His mercy and love are inseparable, a divine embrace that lifts you from the depths of fear and despair, shaping your heart to trust, to hope, and to abide in Him. Even in the darkest valleys, God's light is present, though sometimes hidden from the eyes of the heart. When sorrow presses heavily upon you, when fear seems to surround every thought, trust in God becomes your lifeline. Hope is not naive, it is active and deliberate. It is choosing to believe that no shadow, no matter how dense, can extinguish the light of His love. In moments when the night feels endless, when prayers seem unanswered, when the weight of life threatens to crush your spirit, trust becomes an act of courage, a declaration that God is faithful. Every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt is seen by Him, even when you cannot perceive the path. Even when uncertainty dominates your mind, His grace is at work, shaping the invisible threads of your life into a tapestry of hope. Trust in God during darkness does not remove the pain, but it transforms the way you experience it. It allows your heart to rest in His presence even when circumstances are harsh, when confusion clouds your thoughts, and when despair whispers lies of abandonment. St. Francis reminds us that simplicity and humility create space for God's grace to flourish. In surrendering control, in admitting our weakness, we allow God to work in ways beyond our imagination. Darkness becomes a teacher, guiding you to deeper reliance on Him, to prayer that rises from the soul, and to a faith that perseveres even when evidence is scarce. Trust is a quiet companion in the silence of uncertainty, a steady hand that holds you when your own strength falters, and a beacon that points toward God's unwavering love in every storm. Hope is the seed that flourishes in adversity. It grows quietly in the heart when the eyes of the world see only despair. When you face trials that seem insurmountable, when your dreams crumble or your heart is heavy with loss, hope whispers that God's plan is greater than your understanding. It is the promise that even in suffering, grace is present, weaving lessons, mercy, and growth into your life. To hope in darkness is to see beyond the immediate pain, to trust that God's providence is unfolding even when it is invisible. It allows the soul to rise above fear, to find moments of peace amid chaos, and to lean into God's care with confidence. Hope transforms struggle into opportunity for faith, resilience, and intimacy with the divine. When doubt assails the heart, trust becomes an anchor. Life often presents moments when logic and reason cannot explain suffering, when prayers feel unheard, and when despair threatens to overtake the spirit. Yet in those moments, faith is strengthened through trust in God's perfect wisdom and timing. Darkness tests patience, endurance, and humility, teaching the soul that reliance on God is not optional but essential. Each step taken in trust, even when trembling, builds courage and fortitude. The heart learns that surrender is not weakness but a profound acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. Through this, the soul experiences a peace that surpasses understanding, a quiet joy in the midst of difficulty, and a confidence that God is never distant, even when His presence is felt only in whispers. Hope and trust together form the foundation of a resilient faith. In the midst of uncertainty, when life seems to withhold answers, they guide you to perseverance. Every trial becomes an opportunity to deepen intimacy with God, to practice patience, and to allow His love to heal and strengthen you. Darkness is not a void, but a canvas upon which God's mercy and light can shine. By trusting Him, the heart opens to lessons, grace, and transformation that only adversity can bring. Hope sustains you through sleepless nights, through moments of fear and despair, and through challenges that seem endless. It keeps the soul aligned with God's plan, reminding you that no matter how opaque the path, His light is never extinguished, His presence never absent, and His promises remain steadfast. True strength is found not in pride or self-reliance, but in surrender to God's will. When the heart relinquishes control, admitting its limitations, it discovers a power far greater than anything the world can offer. Humility is not weakness, it is the doorway to divine strength, the vessel through which God's grace flows freely into the soul. When you bow in surrender, you acknowledge that life's burdens are too heavy to bear alone, and in doing so, you open your spirit to God's transformative love. Each act of letting go, each moment of honest self-reflection is a step toward freedom. The soul that humbles itself becomes resilient, for it is no longer bound by the illusion of self-sufficiency, but rests in the steadfastness of a God who holds every circumstance with care. Surrender is an act of trust, a conscious choice to place your fears, desires, and uncertainties in God's hands. It is the courage to admit that your plans may not always align with His, and the patience to wait for His guidance. Humility teaches the soul to see the world with clarity, to recognize the needs of others, and to respond with love rather than judgment. In this quiet yielding, God's strength is revealed as a sustaining presence that lifts you from exhaustion, renews your spirit, and equips you to face life's trials with courage. The heart that surrenders experiences a peace unattainable through control or effort alone, a serenity that flows from trusting in the wisdom and mercy of a God who never abandons those who seek Him sincerely. When the world tells you to fight, to resist, and to assert your own power, surrender may seem counterintuitive, even difficult. Yet humility transforms struggle into a sacred opportunity for growth. By laying down pride and ambition, the soul learns to rely on God's providence rather than its own understanding. Each act of surrender is a declaration that God is greater than fear, stronger than doubt, and more faithful than any human plan. Humility softens the heart to receive His guidance, and surrender frees the spirit to embrace His will without resistance. This is the paradox of true strength. It emerges not from control but from release, not from asserting the self but from trusting wholly in the one who is love, mercy, and hope. Strength through surrender and humility is also reflected in how you relate to others. A humble heart recognizes the dignity and struggles of those around you, offering compassion rather than pride, service rather than self-interest. It is a strength that does not demand recognition or reward, but finds joy in lifting others, in being a conduit of God's grace in the world. Each moment of gentle patience, each act of kindness rooted in humility, demonstrates a trust in God's power to work through you. By surrendering personal ambition and allowing love to guide your actions, you cultivate a courage that withstands adversity, a resilience that does not waver in hardship, and a peace that anchors the soul amidst life's storms, drawing you ever closer to God's heart. Finally, surrender and humility teach the soul that true freedom comes from dependence on God rather than independence. Every worry, every burden, every longing that you release into His care becomes an opportunity for grace to flourish. Humility allows the spirit to recognize its need for God, to embrace His guidance, and to find strength in obedience and trust. In surrendering control, you open space for God's transformative power to shape your character, refine your heart, and cultivate virtues such as patience, gentleness, and steadfast faith. The soul that humbles itself learns to walk in harmony with God's will, to respond to life's challenges with trust rather than fear, and to bear burdens with courage and serenity, knowing that His strength is made perfect in human weakness. Repentance is not a weight to bear with guilt, nor a punishment for failing. It is a sacred invitation to renewal. When you recognize your mistakes and turn your heart toward God, you open a door to His transformative grace. True repentance is rooted in humility, the acknowledgement that you need God's mercy and guidance to live fully. It is not about shame or self-condemnation, but about restoration, a gentle return to the embrace of the one who loves you unconditionally. Every act of sincere repentance refreshes the soul, clears the burdens of conscience, and restores a sense of peace. In this way, mistakes become opportunities for growth, sin becomes a teacher, and every confession of the heart draws you closer to God, who delights in the return of His children. Repentance allows the soul to break free from the chains of past failures and regrets. It is a practice of honesty with oneself before God, a willingness to confront what is hidden, and an act of courage to face your imperfections. In embracing this process, you discover that God's love is stronger than your mistakes, that His mercy heals wounds that pride and shame could never touch. Repentance is an active turning, a deliberate shift from self-reliance to God-dependence, from fear to hope. It restores clarity to the mind, humility to the heart, and strength to the spirit. The soul learns that God does not delight in punishment, but in transformation, that He seeks the renewal of life, the cleansing of conscience, and the joy of restored intimacy with Him. The act of repentance is also an expression of hope, a belief that no matter how far one is strayed, God's mercy can reach even the lost, distant heart. It is a radical act of trust, acknowledging that your past does not define your future, and that God's grace can rewrite the story of your life. Through repentance, the soul experiences liberation from the heaviness of regret, discovering freedom in God's forgiveness. It is not a moment of despair, but a step into light, a surrender of pride, and a recognition that His love is sufficient for every fault, every weakness, and every hesitation. Each confession, each humble prayer becomes a source of inner renewal, a cleansing river that washes the spirit and invites the heart to beat again with joy and courage. Repentance is not only a personal journey, but also a spiritual practice that strengthens the soul's relationship with God. By turning away from actions, thoughts, and patterns that harm and turning toward God's will, the soul learns to align more fully with His love and purpose. This process requires honesty, humility, and the willingness to receive correction, yet it brings profound peace. Through repentance, you gain clarity, perspective, and the courage to live faithfully. It is a continuous journey, a rhythm of turning and returning, falling and rising, sin and restoration, always guided by God's enduring mercy. In this light, mistakes cease to be burdens and become opportunities for growth. Every failure a chance to deepen trust, and every moment of renewal a step closer to holiness and divine intimacy. Finally, the beauty of repentance lies in its ability to transform the soul from within. It is not a fleeting ritual, but a way of life that invites ongoing reflection, surrender, and reliance on God. The humble heart that embraces repentance experiences a freedom unlike any other, a release from shame, and a deep, abiding peace. Through this practice, the soul learns patience, humility, and resilience, recognizing that sin is never stronger than God's mercy. Repentance renews not only the spirit, but also the mind and body, allowing the individual to walk with confidence in God's love. It is a sacred pathway to healing, a living expression of trust, and a profound reminder that God desires restoration, transformation, and the joyful return of every wandering heart. Faith is alive when it moves from the mind into the heart and hands, and it finds its fullest expression in prayer, worship, and adoration. Prayer is the language of the soul, a bridge that connects the human heart to the divine. It is more than words. It is attention, presence, and surrender. In prayer, you bring every fear, hope, joy, and sorrow to God, trusting that He listens, understands, and responds according to His perfect wisdom. Worship allows the soul to rise above the distractions and anxieties of the world, to be immersed in the beauty of God's presence, and to encounter His love in a profound, tangible way. Adoration is the purest acknowledgement of God's greatness, a recognition that He is worthy of all love, attention, and devotion, drawing the heart into intimacy with Him. Through consistent prayer, the soul develops resilience and peace, learning to depend on God in every circumstance. It is a habit that transforms life, turning ordinary moments into opportunities for communion with the divine. Prayer strengthens the heart in times of fear, calms the spirit in moments of anxiety, and illuminates the path when the way forward seems unclear. Worship amplifies this connection, lifting the soul beyond itself and fostering an awareness of God's presence in all creation. In adoration, the believer recognizes the majesty, mercy, and faithfulness of God, allowing awe and gratitude to fill the heart. Together, these practices are not mere rituals but lifelines, sustaining the soul, renewing hope, and inviting God's power to shape character, deepen trust, and strengthen faith. Faith expressed through action does not wait for circumstances to change, but actively seeks God's presence in the now. Prayer becomes an act of courage, a reaching toward the unseen with confidence that God is present. Worship teaches surrender, humility, and the joy of acknowledging God's sovereignty. Adoration draws the soul into a rhythm of gratitude, a pattern of constant recognition that life is sustained by His love. By practicing these acts faithfully, the believer cultivates a heart that is attuned to God's guidance, a mind that discerns His will, and a spirit that rests in His care. Faith becomes tangible through this practice, a living force that shapes thoughts, choices, and actions in alignment with divine purpose, reminding the soul that God is both near and intimately involved in every moment. Prayer, worship, and adoration also teach patience and persistence. They remind the soul that spiritual growth is not instant but nurtured through consistent turning toward God. Each moment spent in communion strengthens the spirit, cultivates trust, and builds resilience. Worship allows the heart to experience the joy of God's presence even amid trials, while adoration fosters humility and gratitude. Prayer anchors the soul in NTS of uncertainty, offering guidance and comfort when human strength falters. In this way, faith in action becomes a source of profound strength, shaping the believer into a vessel of God's love, mercy, and peace. It is through this active, attentive engagement with God that the soul grows, transforms, and becomes equipped to face life's challenges with courage, hope, and unwavering trust. The power of faith in action lies in its ability to draw the believer into deeper intimacy with God. Through prayer, worship, and adoration, the heart learns to recognize His voice, discern His presence, and respond with love. These practices cultivate a sensitivity to the Spirit, an openness to guidance, and a humility that acknowledges dependence on God rather than self. Faith expressed in this way does not remain theoretical. It becomes a living, breathing relationship with the divine. The soul that engages consistently with prayer, worship, and adoration develops resilience, patience, and joy that transcends circumstances. Through these acts, life is transformed into a continual offering to God, and the believer experiences a depth of peace and closeness to the Creator that sustains them through every trial, every doubt, and every uncertainty. Finally, faith in action nurtures a heart that is both steadfast and tender. Prayer offers refuge. Worship provides perspective, and adoration cultivates wonder and gratitude. Together, they teach the soul to remain rooted in God amid life's storms, to rejoice in His goodness, and to surrender completely to His will. The believer learns to trust that every moment of devotion has eternal significance, that every heartfelt prayer matters, and that every act of worship shapes the soul in profound ways. This practice reinforces the understanding that faith is not passive, it is active, responsive, and alive. Through consistent engagement in prayer, worship, and adoration, the soul is strengthened, refined, and drawn into a deeper, more intimate relationship with the God who is love, mercy, and eternal presence. Life is often filled with challenges that test the heart, the mind, and the spirit. There are days when hope seems distant, when obstacles appear insurmountable, and when fear whispers that surrender is easier than perseverance. Yet it is precisely in these moments that God calls you to courage, reminding you that strength is not measured by comfort or ease, but by the resilience of faith. Encouragement comes not from fleeting success, but from the quiet assurance that God is near, guiding, sustaining, and uplifting your spirit. Each small step forward, each prayer uttered with sincerity, each act of trust is a triumph over despair. Perseverance transforms weakness into strength and trials into opportunities for growth, teaching the soul that steadfast faith is a light that shines even in the darkest valleys. Encouragement is a gift from God that often appears through unexpected channels, a kind word, a moment of clarity, a memory of past victories, or the gentle whisper of His Spirit. It strengthens the heart and restores hope, reminding you that you are not alone in your journey. Perseverance is cultivated when the soul chooses to continue walking with God, even when the path is unclear, when doubts arise, and when challenges press heavily upon your shoulders. The faithful heart learns to lean on God's wisdom, finding patience and courage in His promises. Each obstacle faced with trust becomes a testament to God's sustaining power, and each victory, however small, becomes a reminder that perseverance in faith brings growth, resilience, and a deeper understanding of God's love and faithfulness. Perseverance is not a matter of stubborn endurance, but of active trust in God's timing and providence. It requires the soul to remain committed even when results are not immediate, when prayers seem unanswered, and when trials continue longer than desired. Encouragement sustains this journey by providing glimpses of God's presence, whispers of hope, and reminders of His mercy. Each act of persistence, each decision to rise after falling becomes a spiritual practice that strengthens character, deepens intimacy with God, and fosters courage. Through perseverance, the heart learns that life's difficulties are not signs of abandonment, but opportunities for God to manifest His grace. Encouragement and perseverance work together, forming a rhythm that nurtures resilience, faith, and unwavering hope in the one who never abandons those who seek Him. The journey of faith is rarely easy, yet encouragement and perseverance equip the soul to navigate its challenges with courage and trust. In moments of fatigue, When burdens feel too heavy, encouragement reminds the believer of God's sustaining power and His constant presence. Perseverance calls the soul to continue walking even when the road is long, the obstacles great, and the path uncertain. Each act of persistence deepens reliance on God, strengthens character, and cultivates inner peace that transcends circumstances. Encouragement renews the spirit, reminding the heart that every trial faced with faith is an opportunity to grow closer to God, to cultivate patience, and to witness His love in action. Perseverance transforms fear into courage, doubt into trust, and struggle into a journey of spiritual maturity and resilience. Finally, encouragement and perseverance are intertwined with hope and trust, forming the backbone of a life rooted in God's love. Through encouragement, the heart finds reminders of God's faithfulness, moments of inspiration, and the strength to rise after setbacks. Through perseverance, the soul learns endurance, patience, and steadfastness, continuing forward despite difficulties, knowing that God's timing is perfect and His guidance unfailing. Each trial overcome, each moment of faithfulness becomes a testament to the transformative power of God's grace. Encouragement fuels the desire to keep moving, while perseverance sustains the steps along the journey. Together, they teach the soul to remain steadfast in hope, resilient in faith, and confident in God's mercy, revealing that no challenge is greater than His love, and no darkness can extinguish the light He places within the heart.